You're watching TelecomTV's exclusive video coverage of the Gen 15 event from Dallas. And it's time now for our main agenda panel discussion, driving new revenue growth, how to combine LSO, SDN and NFV profitably. And joining me today, I am joined on my far right by David Hughes, who is Vice President of IP Engineering with PCCW. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks.
Next to David, Cyril Dussault, who is Senior Director of Global Product Marketing at Infovista.
Thanks for inviting us in the panel.
Our pleasure. And on my immediate right, Daryl Stork, Regional Director of Web NMS.
Good afternoon, Guy. Good to be here.
Can I start the discussion first of all? Why? Why is the industry going through this evolution to SDN and looking at virtualizing network functions, David?
One of the big problems we always have is problem of snowflakes, right? Snowflakes cause a lot of problems in an operational environment. That's where all your unplanned work comes from, your outages, things that negatively impact the customers. So by going to automation and automated systems and systems that can think and respond quicker than humans, you can help eliminate the snowflakes and head off all the unintended consequences of butterfly effect. So you're providing better service to the customers, and you're standardizing and simplifying everything you do, which, because everything is becoming much more complex, simplicity, where you can simplify, you should simplify, because the only way we can embrace all this complexity is to try to simplify each individual step.
So, Cyril, it sounds like a balance between the complexities of all the new technology you're introducing, and yet we still want to make sure we can manage all this in as simple way as possible.
Yes, I do agree, and I think the main point that we mentioned and we often hear from our customers is the fact it's the automation. So right now, IT has been fully automated. We've got virtual servers that are available to them, and they expect as well CSPs to offer virtual networks on demand. So that's something that we hear a lot from the CSPs in the industry, that it might take some time, like 30 days, to activate provisional services. It's not acceptable any longer, and so that's really IT driving that request to the CSPs, and that's the response from the CSPs to the needs of their customers.
Daryl?
Yeah, so obviously David's perspective from a service provider view is the only one that counts, because he's the guy that's touching the end customer. Just to kind of, when you ask the question, what's driving SDN and NFV adoption? So the reality is, a service provider operation is always looking for ways to do things more efficiently, right? By extension, more efficient means cost saving. These types of technologies like SDN and NFV have come through a testing into an adoption phase, and I think they're almost mature enough now that they're ready for mainstream deployment. Hence companies like PCCW embracing these kind of technologies. However, we also cannot forget what's driving them, right? It's not just about saving money on the bottom line within operations and simplifying, absolutely. One of the main drivers that's getting these technologies adopted is the fact that the customer, the end customer, the subscriber, is looking for much more dynamic services. They want something quicker, they want it when they want it, how they want it. And if you're a service provider and you can't do it, well, we'll go to your competitors as simple as tomorrow if you can't give it to me today.
So, David, as Daryl was saying that, it's all about the services and the customer requiring these services. I guess, speed for services.
The thing we always try to do, we got to understand, is you got to keep the main thing the main thing. And with customers, technology is always going to be a part of their business, but it's not their business, right? And because of the speed with which technology is accelerating recently, it's different than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, a customer could kind of keep up with the technology and absorb it and deal with it in-house. But because of the acceleration of technology due to cloud and focused on innovation and open source, it's becoming more challenging for an enterprise customer and even some wholesale customers to keep up with that rate of change. So all of this is, saving money is important as part of it, but it's really about adding value to the customer and helping the customer to keep the main thing the main thing. If you're a law firm, be a law firm. You're a manufacturing facility, be a manufacturing facility. And we will help you embrace and leverage that technology, and we'll make that technology simpler for you to interface with. We're not getting rid of the complexity, we're putting the complexity where it belongs, and we can help them manage that. That's the focus we see.
I mean, we well versed in SDN and NFV at various industry events, and we're seeing proofs of concept coming through. Here at Gen 15, we're also talking about orchestration and LSO. What exactly is LSO, and how does this fit into the mix?
LSO is all about the service side and orchestrating the service. So with NFV, you can virtualize the network. With SDN, you can automate the configuration of the devices, but then you need a component to do the service orchestration. And service orchestration is about as well making sure the performance is delivered to the customer receives the right SLA, so the service fulfill the SLA that they have signed. So it's really the organization, the orchestration of that service.
Can I chime in? So we're this is our business. This is what WebNMS does, right? We have a service orchestration platform. So one of the things about the adoption of any new technology, it's only going to be deployed, or there's going to be an uptake of the technology if there are direct benefits, right? So I think we don't need to discuss the benefits of SDN and NFV. You know, the industry's vetted it. Definitely we see benefit. However, this is something that we're seeing now, that a platform with the capability in what we're calling now service orchestration is so necessary to harness the power of what SDN and NFV can do. I think the industry has only woken up to this very recently. I think that they embraced SDN and NFV to varying degrees, but I think that what they've realized is we've inserted an additional component into the network, which is actually increasing the complexity. You know, David was talking about the customer should be oblivious to this complexity. That's his challenge as a network administrator. So this is what service orchestration is all about. It's another component. A network is not quite as simple as SDN and NFV. It's got legacy technology. It's got the old, the new, the old that hasn't reached TCO yet, and is going to be existing in the network for a long time. You know, these are the challenges. How do we make all of these different ecosystems live together and deliver the end service to the customer seamlessly? Like David said, the customer doesn't care about his network. They just want what they want.
True, the customer doesn't care, but I guess as the network, as the provider, you know, it's your job to make sure all this works and combines. And I've been hearing these past 2 days, it's not about greenfield. You know, we do have large legacy systems in place that we have to work in a hybrid environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes down to abstractions, right? You have to be able to understand what it is you're trying to do and then build the proper abstractions for it. If you look at the OSI model, that's why the internet has been so widely successful, because of the simplicity of that stack and the fact that you can go from building a web application at the top of the stack to putting bits on a wire, and the guy that built the web app doesn't have to understand how to put bits on a wire because he's got all these different layers of abstractions in between it. When dealing with the legacy applications and adding these layers of abstraction like the orchestrator layer, that's just an abstraction layer so that you make it simpler for people to be able to express intent. They can express intent without having to understand topology, without having to understand the physical devices underneath it. So it's providing a facade, a normalization layer between the operator and the actual equipment. So when you start looking at legacy systems, all you're really doing is building a wrapper, an adapter, or some sort of plug-in around that thing so that you can plug it into that common framework, that abstraction. And that's basically how you deal with legacy systems.
Daryl, you're nodding away there.
Oh, I'm agreeing, and I think it's one of the central themes, and why we believe that the work that the MEF is doing is really important, because they're defining these abstractions, they're defining how different aged technologies can live together in a single platform. I think that up until, let's say, recently, there's a bit of skepticism in the industry about how this can exist in reality. And the message is it's being done already today. It can be done exactly like David said. If you build an abstraction layer around an old technology, you don't have to manage it the same way that you're managing the next generation SDN and NFV. They can live together quite harmoniously.
Yeah, because if you try to go in and rip out that legacy layer, you're digging a hole for yourself you're never going to get out of. It's a quagmire. You're not going to make progress.
But I think that at the end of the day, it's the opportunity to offer additional and new business services to your customer, like security services, application visibility services, control. And so while the LSO is going to help really with that automation, as well, there's a business benefits and there's those new services that can be offered to the customer. I think it refers to the point that you were mentioning as well.
Yeah.
If I can just jump on what Cyril said here as well, this is a very important point that is raised, in that, you know, we all read the press and we see, you know, the companies that are making or returning massive revenue numbers. If we're looking at things like cloud services, virtualization, the biggest companies or the largest revenue spinners are companies like Google and Amazon. They're not network providers, right? To me, it's still strange that at this advanced stage that network providers are not touting these services much more. You know, they own the network. That is their differentiator. To me, they should be, you know, not just providing bandwidth services and focused on speed and when the customer wants it, but the content of the pipe as well. You know, the basis of this discussion is, you know, how do operators generate revenue? This is a good way to do that. So aligning with content providers, providing these over-the-top services themselves, as opposed to just being the pipe.
And that those technology exist today. You can offer application visibility, you can offer control, but today it's physical boxes. Now everything is virtualized, and they can be spanned on demand through a self-service portal, and that's what's going to make the difference. The adoption is going to be much easier.
Yeah, and we're doing quite a bit of that actually already, as far as interconnecting with cloud providers, so that if the customer has virtual machines in, say, a Microsoft Azure, we can bring those virtual machines into an MPLS VPN provided by us. You know, give them a single pane of glass of management. So these are things that we're doing and are other things we're working on. But it really doesn't matter if I can orchestrate and automate within my own network, because honestly, you know, half of my stuff goes off net at some point in time. You know, we utilize MPLS NNI partners. And so if there's no way for us to interoperate with the other providers and form some sort of bilateral commercial agreement to do this interchange and disintermediation with each other, it's really not going to get us to where we need to go. And so I think what we need to be MEF and others need to start thinking about is how do you frame and set up that bilateral agreement in voice, in data, like we had in voice, because it's, you know, it's not a new problem. We've done it before with voice, you know. But how is a customer that's got, you know, a site in Hong Kong and in New York or Hong Kong and Africa, how is he going to connect those together? At some point in time, he's got to cross somebody else's network, and somebody's got to reach out and provision something.
I totally agree, and I think it's why the MEF and the whole LSO concept come into place and is extremely important. It helps those different providers to interact together in order to offer that end-to-end service to the retail customer, even if you've got different access providers.
If I can sort of bring this to a close, because there's been a terrific discussion amongst the three of you there. Does this mean that we might see a change in nature of what it means to be a service provider or network operator? Is the real value now, if I use the term orchestration, but not in LSO sense, someone who orchestrates services across a number of different networks, they're interconnected, the value is in bringing this sort of community and all these different elements together. That's what is valuable to the customer.
Absolutely. That's you know, that's paramount to the principle of orchestration. So the work, you know, to, like David was describing, off network and on network, this is sort of service orchestration taken to the next level, to the highest level. Before you can achieve that, you need to be able to orchestrate and be efficient inside of your own operation. The fact that the MEF is defining standards makes it easier for operators. So I think that you'll see also a natural trend of operators doing business with each other, or service providers doing business with each other, that have embraced and are standardized, because it's much easier for them to interconnect. You know, the example that David used, if it's PCCW's customer, you know, they're going to come back to you if the service is not performing. They're not worried that part of the service is carried off net. You know, you are the interaction with the customer. So if your service partner network is performing at the same standards you are via these certifications and standards, it makes it much easier, and the end customer gets what he signed up for.
Cyril, thought from you?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think really like the MEF has done already a great job to standardize Carrier Ethernet 2.0 services, and so when the whole industry adopt those standardization, it makes it much easier, and so with LSO as well, it's going to be extremely important.
So David, more work to be done, more work on the collaboration and focusing on this data interconnection.
There's a lot, and organizations like MEF and all the other SDOs are very important in the development and evolution of these things, but they're not the only thing. You have to look at open source because standards can take a very long time to mature, and the rate at which we need to get solutions done, sometimes you can't wait for the standard. So it's really going to also rely upon individual organizations taking responsibility for that collaboration and working with others. You know, you can't just depend upon the SDO to solve it for you. You got to put some skin in the game. You got to work with your brothers, because the telco industry has always been a very interdependent industry. It's very unique in that. You know, the airlines are kind of interdependent because you can put a seat on Delta and move it to United and it's no big deal. We need to be like that as carriers, so that if a customer's on my network, he can be able to move to someone else's and back, depending upon if there's an outage, a disaster situation, a flood, a fire, cable cut. But we as carriers have to take that responsibility on ourselves, and we can't just punt it to MEF and to others to do that for us.
Fascinating. Gentlemen, we are out of time. David, Cyril and Daryl, thank you all very much. Fascinating discussion. And a final reminder that you can watch all of our panel discussions and all of our interviews from Gen 15 on our website, telecomtv.com. Thank you for watching and goodbye.